The smell of a standing rib roast usually means a celebration. But that Sunday, it just smelled like slow-cooked disrespect. My name is Joanne Carter. I'm 66 years old. And for a long time, I thought keeping the peace meant swallowing my own words. I was sitting in the formal dining room of my son Marcus and his wife, Chloe's house. It was a sprawling, gorgeous place with massive windows and immaculate landscaping, a house they only had because the entire down payment came straight out of my life savings. It was Mother's Day. I'd shown up with a homemade pie and a smile, expecting a quiet, pleasant afternoon. But from the very first bite, Chloe started in with her usual jabs. First, she criticized my hair, then she made a comment about the pie crust. And finally, she got to what she actually wanted to talk about. Joanne, with my new promotion at the firm, I just don't have time to keep up with the house anymore, Chloe said, slicing her meat with cold, surgical precision. We need you to come over on Tuesdays and Thursdays to clean and organize. You're the only one with free time. I looked at her and slowly set my fork down. It wasn't a request. It was an order. No, Chloe. My free time is my own. You two can hire a housekeeper if you need one, I replied, keeping my voice perfectly level. The room froze. Chloe dropped her silverware with a loud clatter and let out a heavy, exaggerated sigh. She shot a glare at Marcus, her eyes practically demanding he step in. My son, a 32-year-old man who had learned to avoid conflict simply by caving to his wife's every whim, stood up. His face was flushed and tight. Demand an apology from my wife right now, or you're out of this family. Mom, Marcus yelled, pointing a finger toward the front door. Chloe smirked. It was that little, crooked smile of someone who thought she held all the winning cards. I stood up slowly, grabbed my purse, and looked him dead in the eye. Watch how fast you fall. I turned on my heel and walked out the front door. I didn't look back. The drive home was different from other times they had upset me. There were no tears blurring my vision, no heavy lump of anxiety sitting in my throat. I just felt a deep, absolute clarity, as sharp as glass. When I walked through the front door of my modest, fully paid-off house, the silence greeted me like an old friend. I dropped my keys on the entryway table, brewed a cup of tea, and sat down at the kitchen island with my ledger. For 3 years, I had been heavily subsidizing Marcus and Chloe's lifestyle. It wasn't just the down payment on the house. Every single month, I paid their $800 HOA fees. On top of that, Chloe was driving a luxury SUV, a lease that was in my name, which I paid religiously to the tune of $900 a month. They also had an authorized user card linked to my primary credit card. It was supposed to be for emergencies, but they mostly used it to fund expensive steakhouse dinners and designer clothes. I had built this monster myself. I thought taking the financial pressure off would help them find their footing and avoid the stress my late husband and I went through when we were young. But my generosity didn't buy their stability. It only bought my own humiliation. I stared at the numbers. The monthly drain was massive money pulled directly from my retirement accounts and the rental income of a small commercial property I owned. I closed the ledger, washed my mug, and went to bed. I slept better that night than I had in 3 years. I didn't draft long, emotional text messages, and I didn't lay awake waiting for an apology call. The decision was made, and Monday was just a few hours away. I woke up at 6 a.m. on Monday, just like always. I made my coffee, watered the hydrangeas on the porch, and put on a nice, comfortable outfit. At exactly 9 a.m., I walked through the doors of my bank. I didn't complain to the teller or make a scene. I just gave clear, precise instructions. First, I canceled the authorized credit card with Chloe's name on it. That piece of plastic was instantly dead. Second, I stopped the automatic transfer that went out on the 15th of every month to cover their HOA dues. When I left the bank, I drove straight to the car dealership. I sat down with the finance manager and explained that I would not be renewing the SUV lease. I removed my credit card from their auto pay system for the remaining months and instructed them to forward all future bills directly to Marcus, who was listed as the secondary driver. By noon, I was back in my neighborhood. Before going inside, I called a locksmith. Marcus had a spare key to my place, a leftover habit from his bachelor days. By 2 p.m., my old locks were gone, replaced by a heavy-duty deadbolt. I dropped the shiny new key into my purse and made myself a light lunch. I did it all in total silence. No empty threats, no dramatic ultimatums. They were the ones who laid down the rules on Sunday when they told me I was out of the family. All I did was take my wallet with me on the way out. By Tuesday afternoon, the first domino fell. I was out on the patio reading a book when my phone screen lit up. It was a text from Marcus. His tone was casual, completely devoid of guilt, acting as if Sunday's blow-up had never happened. "Hey, Mom. Is there something wrong with your account? Chloe tried to pay at Whole Foods and the card declined. Let me know so the bank can fix it." I read it and felt zero urge to explain myself. I locked the screen and went back to my book. An hour later, a voicemail popped up from Chloe. Her tone was that classic mix of fake concern and total entitlement she had perfected over the years. "Joanne, so sorry to bother you. The card isn't going through and I had to leave a whole cart of groceries at the register. So embarrassing. Please call your bank. They probably flagged it for fraud." I deleted the audio. Finally, at 5 p.m., Marcus called. I let it ring 3 times before picking up. "Mom, why aren't you answering?" he demanded, his voice pitching higher than usual. "The card is canceled. I called the bank and they said the primary account holder shut it down." "That's right." "Marcus," I said calmly, "I canceled it yesterday." A heavy silence dropped over the line. "What? Why would you do that without telling us Chloe had to leave all her stuff at the store? You made yourself very clear on Sunday. Marcus, you demanded I leave your family. I respected your decision. Guests don't pay the bills for a household they aren't a part of." "Mom, don't be so dramatic. I was just mad." "There's no drama," I interrupted gently. "Just consequences. Have a good evening." I hung up before he could stumble through another excuse. On Wednesday, reality physically showed up on my front porch. It was around 10 a.m. when I heard the metallic scraping of a key trying to force its way into my lock. I peeked through the living room blinds. It was Marcus, violently jiggling the doorknob in pure frustration. I opened the heavy wooden door but kept the locked security screen between us. He looked up, stunned. "You changed the locks," he blurted out, in absolute disbelief. "Mom, what is wrong with you? The HOA payment bounced today. I tried to use my savings, but it's not enough. You need to wire the money right now." I leaned against the door frame and crossed my arms. "I won't be wiring any more money, Marcus. And I won't be paying for Chloe's SUV anymore, either. My billing info has been pulled from the dealership." His eyes went wide, and the color completely drained from his face. "Are you out of your mind? They're going to repossess the car. I can't afford the HOA and the lease payment at the same time. My salary doesn't cover all that. It's your fault for getting us used to this lifestyle." It was exactly the reaction I expected. Zero personal accountability. Just a frantic search for someone else to blame. You are both adults. You both work. If the lifestyle you've chosen requires a 66-year-old widow to foot the bill, then you're living a fantasy. It's time to wake up. Chloe is hysterical, he admitted, dropping his voice, finally showing a crack of vulnerability. She's driving me crazy. Mom, please, just cover the transfer for this month. That sounds like a marriage problem. Marcus, not a budget problem, I said, slowly pulling the door shut. I listened to his footsteps retreat down the garden path. The peace inside my home returned instantly. Later that afternoon, while Marcus was surely facing the wrath of his wife, I sat down at my laptop. Without the constant financial hemorrhage of supporting them, my monthly balance showed a surplus I hadn't seen in years. I had wanted to visit Sedona, Arizona, for a long time. I wanted to see the red rocks, wander through the art galleries, and just breathe. I had always put it off because that money might be needed for one of my son's emergencies. With a few clicks, I booked a direct flight and a beautiful boutique hotel right among the canyons for the following week. A profound lightness settled in my chest, and I actually smiled. I wasn't punishing my son. I was simply handing his responsibilities back to him. While I was casually packing a suitcase, my phone buzzed. It wasn't Marcus this time. It was Chloe. Seeing her name on the screen piqued my curiosity, so I swiped to answer. "Joanne," she said. Her voice was incredibly tight, clearly struggling to maintain a friendly tone. "I think there was a huge misunderstanding on Sunday. Marcus didn't express himself well, and you took it way too personally." "There was no misunderstanding. Chloe, I heard him perfectly. We're family." She pushed, completely ignoring my response. Families help each other. You can't just leave us stranded with bills you knew we had. It's honestly cruel of you to just hide and cut off the money like this. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't hurl insults. Nobody forced you to lease a luxury car, Chloe. And nobody forced you to buy a house with outrageous HOA fees. Have a lovely day. I ended the call and turned my phone off entirely. Friday evening brought a nice, cool breeze. I spent the afternoon pruning the rose bushes, just enjoying the weather. Right around sunset, a car parked out front. It wasn't Chloe's shiny SUV. It was a cheap, compact sedan, the kind of loaner a dealership gives you when your car is in the shop. Marcus and Chloe walked up my driveway. They looked utterly exhausted. Chloe's usual dominant, upright posture was gone, replaced by slumped shoulders and eyes that refused to meet mine. Marcus rang the doorbell aggressively. I walked over, opened the main door, and once again left the security screen firmly locked. "Mom!" Marcus started, running a hand through his hair. "The dealership called. If we don't pay by Monday, they're taking the SUV, and the HOA property manager already slapped us with late fees." I looked at him, then over at Chloe. She kept her eyes glued to the welcome mat. "That sounds like a tough situation," I said, keeping my tone perfectly neutral. "Just let us in, please. We need to sit down and talk about this like civilized adults." Marcus pleaded, gripping the bars of the screen door. "We can talk right here. The breeze is wonderful." Chloe finally looked up. Her eyes were a messy mix of contained rage and sheer desperation. "Joanne, I'm sorry." "Okay," she spat out, forcing the words through her teeth. "I apologize for Sunday. I was stressed out. Now, can we please fix this money issue?" It was a hollow apology, a purely transactional exchange. They were trying to buy my submission with a deeply insincere sorry. "I accept your apology, Chloe," I replied smoothly. "But the money issue is already fixed. My money is staying in my account." "Are you really going to sit back and watch us lose the car?" Marcus asked, his voice rising in panic. "Are you going to watch us drown just out of pride?" I looked at my son. He had grown into a man, but in that moment, He sounded exactly like a teenager whining about his allowance. It's not pride, Marcus. It's survival. I've spent 3 years keeping a roof over a house I don't live in, funding a status you two can't afford. Sunday finally opened my eyes. You didn't want a mother. You wanted an ATM. And the ATM is closed. Chloe lost whatever little patience she had left. We can't pay for all of this on our own. You knew that from the beginning. Then you'll have to hand the keys over to the dealership and buy a used car. I suggested matter-of-factly. And if the house is too expensive, you sell it and find something that fits your actual salaries. That is what adults do when their financial realities change. Marcus stared at me like I was a stranger. The woman who always smoothed things over, the woman who always pulled out her checkbook to avoid an argument, was dead and gone. The woman standing in front of them wasn't afraid of their rejection anymore. "You're punishing me?" Marcus muttered, looking completely defeated. "I'm setting you free. From today on, every win you have is yours, and every debt is yours too. You owe me nothing, and I owe you nothing." I stepped back from the door and reached for the handle. "Mom, please," he begged, one last time. "Good night, Marcus. Good night, Chloe." I closed the heavy wooden door. Through the glass, I could hear them instantly start bickering with each other as they walked back to the cheap rental car. Whatever guilt they tried to hurl at me just bounced off my front porch. It wasn't allowed inside my house anymore. 2 weeks went by. I got updates through a mutual friend who lived near their gated community. Chloe had to officially surrender the SUV back to the dealership. She was now taking the corporate shuttle to her office, something she had always loudly claimed was beneath her. I also found out Marcus had picked up a weekend side hustle just to catch up on the HOA arrears. The financial pressure had completely shattered the picture-perfect facade of their marriage. Without my money to cushion their lives, they actually had to face each other. I didn't take joy in their struggle, but I didn't feel the urge to run in and save them either. For the first time in his life, I was letting my son feel the actual weight of his own choices. While all of that was happening, I was in Sedona. I hiked the Red Rocks, ate incredible food, and bought myself a beautiful, handcrafted turquoise necklace that made me feel alive. My phone stayed quiet for most of the trip, but on Wednesday, Marcus sent a short text. "We surrendered the car. Chloe is unbearable. Guess you were right about how fast things fall apart." I replied with something brief and honest. "It's a chance to rebuild on a solid foundation. Take care." I didn't offer to wire him cash. I didn't offer to buy them dinner to cheer them up. I held my ground. The old, rotting bridge between us had to completely collapse before they could figure out if they were capable of building a new one. It's been 6 months since that Mother's Day. The entire dynamic of my life has shifted. And honestly, it's been wonderful. My savings have grown, which allowed me to finally remodel my kitchen. And I'm already planning a trip to the coast for the fall. Marcus and Chloe had to put their house on the market. They downsized to a modest apartment much closer to what they could actually afford. The transition was brutal. From what I hear, they were on the brink of divorce for a while, but eventually, they started living within their actual means. A few days ago, Marcus came by to visit. This time, he actually called ahead. He came alone, sat down in my newly remodeled living room, and accepted the cup of coffee I poured him. He looked thinner and definitely tired, but there was a different kind of light in his eyes, something much more honest. We made small talk about the weather and his job. When he finished his coffee, he set the mug down and looked right at me. "You were right. We were living a fantasy. And I am really sorry about what happened. Truly." I nodded slowly, acknowledging the effort it took him to say it. "Respect is the only currency that matters in this house. Marcus, You will always be my son, and you will always be welcome here under my rules. He gave me a small, exhausted, but genuine smile. He didn't ask for a dime. When he left, he gave me a hug that felt more real than any embrace we'd shared in the last 3 years. After his car pulled away, I locked my front door and smiled, realizing that the silence in my house was no longer a shield against abuse. It was simply the sound of my own peace. Sometimes, we disguise our fear of rejection as overwhelming generosity. For years, I truly believed that making their lives financially effortless was how I showed my love. But all I really did was buy my own humiliation and breed their entitlement. I learned the hard way that setting boundaries is not an act of selfishness or a punishment, it is pure survival. When you stop solving problems that aren't yours to solve, you don't just give them the opportunity to grow up and face reality. You give yourself the right to finally breathe. At the end of the day, respect cannot be bought with bank transfers or silent sacrifices. My greatest lesson was realizing that my peace is absolutely non-negotiable, and I should never have to pay for a seat at anyone's table.